Our X-Files. Welcome to our X-Files vault. Regular people talking about unexplained phenomena. UFOs. Ghosts. Cryptids. Hidden archaeology. Weird science. Our stories. Our takes. Our X-Files vault.
Hey guys, welcome to, go ahead, say it, Brian.
Beyond Reality.
He's much better at me. Next week, we promised we'll make Samuel say
I don't know about that part. He does it better.
it. Well, welcome to Beyond Reality with Brian O'Malley, Samuel Singh, and Kevin Lenahan. And we're going to be talking tonight about aliens again. Not surprising on this channel, but tonight we're going to go into a little bit about what alternative life forms aliens might have, just how alien can aliens be. Also,
what
maybe
kind of aliens would they have, would they be in order to come here and survive?
Yeah, that's yep.
And
what kind of alien worlds would they come from? So for instance, if I guess like if a lot of people, I'm always fascinated by the octopus, and it's like so. But they say that that if humanity dies in the next couple of thousand years, who knows, maybe many thousands of years from now, the octopus could be the next super intelligent creature. But like you just said, Brian, will it be able to travel to another planet?
Maybe it came from another planet because that thing looks alien as hell.
I just watched my teacher, my octopus teacher.
What?
Yeah, it's called My Octopus Teacher. It's a documentary on Netflix. It was really good.
Oh, I saw that with the guy who was all lonely and he was befriended an octopus.
I feel like he was like a nature photographer, or he did something like that.
Yeah, but he if you watch the whole show, he tells he has some personal problems in his life going on, and so that octopus kind of became his friend.
Right. Yeah, they're super smart.
They are. It was incredible, but one of the things that limits them is you see they only live a year. They're seasonal.
Oh, that's crazy.
So they don't have the ability to accrue knowledge and pass it on. They're just whatever they get is what they're born with.
Well, there's some evidence that that might be encoded in them genetically, because they did a study on them which showed that one generation knew something, and with the newborn ones, they were born with that knowledge. I don't know if it's something that, if knowledge is hereditary inside of that case.
Actually, I haven't heard about that with octopus, but what you are saying is now a fascinating area that they are studying, how there is possibly certain ways of certain limited types of memory that can be passed on genetically like that. It was something that we were taught in biology was impossible, right? High school biology, but they're now studying. There are, no one's saying that something really specific like a Led Zeppelin song or something like that. Your kid's born singing it, but there are certain types of memory that, like the experience that you have, could somehow be encoded in, I don't know, maybe in your gut bacteria or something, and then somehow get passed on to your offspring. It's limited, but there may be something there. So yeah.
No, but if you think about it, residually, we still have memories and sometimes irrational fears, which are passed down from the time men were hunter gatherers, which is why at sometimes when you see an animal or something and it's a predator, you have that fight or flight syndrome. There's something inept inside of us, which is why a lot of people are scared, because they know that at certain times there's different types of predators which might be out, which is why people still gather in communities. They look for that safe haven. Small things are passed on that way, but imagine what other information we can discover that we don't know that we know.
And with a lifespan of only a year, would it even be possible for them to be the dominant species on a planet?
Yeah, right. It seems like they would have to evolve to live longer.
Yes.
In order to develop a culture and.
Right.
Yeah.
But being that they're related to squids and squids can live longer, I mean, couldn't it be some kind of
How long do
mixed
squids live
genetic
for?
in there? That I'm not sure, but I know it's longer than that, longer than a year. Because think about it, the giant squid, it has to grow several feet, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen within a short span of time. It happens over a large period of time. That's an interesting question, and something that I want to check out. But yeah, it's possible that if you can merge the two DNAs together and have a sort of a crossbreed, you might have something which is more intelligent with a longer lifespan. Or you could have the reverse, but
I think we would have an issue if dolphins were bipedal,
yes.
because they have their own language. They play games. They're very social. They're super smart.
Well, even more important is to have hands, right? Because then you can make tools, and
True.
it's the basis for counting, I think. There's a lot of benefits to having hands.
So that raises the question: if an alien species could get here, they would have to be able to, construct the space, the craft, and fly it. So they would have to be bipedal. Would it be possibly opposable thumbs?
Well, not if they have 8 hands or 8 tentacles.
True. Right. But if they were octopus-like, I feel like everything would be really squishy.
Elephants seem to be able to. Elephants with their tusks, they seem to be able to do a lot with that tusk, don't they? The way they kind of handle
Trunk.
things. The trunk. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, the tusk is not very flexible.
Yeah. No, but they can actually pick up a piece of paper with that trunk, as large as it is.
Yeah.
I've seen them paint. Not firsthand. I don't know any elephants personally, but
Yeah, I know one of them is from Disney.
There you go. He can fly.
Yeah. Talk about the super evolved one.
Sam, I'm not sure if we talked about it last time, but we were talking about how things like from the Bible, where and not just from the Bible, but for like other religions, right? Like the Egyptian gods, that there's speculation that there were like lizard people. I think Kevin, you mentioned something like that before, once upon a time, and this that they're still here and they've always been here. It's like one of those.
What are you talking
theories.
about? Is sort of like what's known inside of what they call the Genesis 6 story. It's briefly touched upon inside of Genesis 6, but it's spoken more inside of the Book of Enoch and stuff like that, where they talk about Nephilim and those who came down, the Watchers.
Yes.
Right. So those are the ones who are supposed to. Nephilim are supposed to be the offspring between angels and humans. Inside of different cultures, supposedly they have different names. Like, and then they were even able to do genetic manipulation. So hence you have stories about Hydra, the Egyptian gods, like Anubis with the jackal head, and the crocodile-headed gods and stuff like that. Supposedly they were able to, right. Supposedly they had that knowledge, which allowed them to live long lives. I mean, if you look inside of the Bible, they have stories of quote unquote giants or Nephilim kings who supposedly ruled for generations, just one person. In the Sumerian text, the Epic of Gilgamesh, he's supposed to have ruled for centuries. And the same thing with early Egyptian stories, that they had the ability to live for centuries, and during that time they were able to construct different things. They were able to do different things. I mean, these are just stories which were passed down. But imagine if they had some ring of truth to it. It would be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder where would they have come from? Like if they were reptilian, or if they were giant, maybe if they were giant, they had a, I don't know, less gravity, but that would make them just tall. I'm not sure if that would make them have more mass.
Right, but based on what you said, a lot of these things are what they called pre-flood civilizations. I mean, each culture has a different idea of what went on before the flood, right? Some of the earliest recordings of a global flood was, as I mentioned before, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which talks about a global flood and about everything being wiped out. And a lot was lost, and so it showed that they had to start back. But it's just, from the way I look at it, there's no clear description, I mean, from what I found, of what they look like, except maybe inside of the book of Enoch, which describes some of them as being monstrously huge. And inside of a pre-flood world, there's also some scientific evidence of the oxygen content in the world being different at the time. So with a higher oxygen content, people, I guess, people and animals were able to reach portions that we are unable to do.
Right.
So maybe a 9-foot or a 10-foot person wouldn't be unheard of. That might have been the norm.
So here's a question. Now, does reptilians, if you're talking about, for instance, aliens who supposedly resemble reptilians, but what about the dinosaur age, which went on for I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of years, and then came to a relatively sudden end? But is it possible that some of those creatures could have reached a civilization level, or at least a higher intelligence level?
I mean, if you talk about reptilians, personally, my opinion on this is that the reptiles that we see today, they're more or less created just for with that survival, that primal instinct, right? But whereas if you look inside of different archaeology and different mythology, they actually had deities with reptilian features. So whether that was a result of genetic manipulation from those who came from the sky, the quote unquote watchers that came down and merged and created a different race, is it possible? Well, there are stories to show that they had a race like that.
But I'm saying that the dinosaur age ended hundreds of thousands of years before the rise. Maybe I forget if it maybe millions of years before the rise of primates. So and they were white, and they were. But is it possible that before that asteroid or series of asteroids wiped them out, if something had developed a higher level, for instance, if you look in the movie Jurassic Park, they have the little raptors that can open and close doors, and they're smart enough to hunt in a pack and stuff like that. Could something like that, if they speculate that some of those were pretty intelligent, could they take it a step further and have even developed a higher level of intelligence? Could that evidence be gone since it's millions of years later? Could there be something like a reptilian civilization? How would we find it?
It's entirely possible, but for the existence of something like that to be able to survive millennia.
No, I didn't say survive. Not necessarily survive. Just that, could they have developed that?
I don't think their intelligence went beyond. Not that it wasn't, impressive, but like the animal.
In terms of creating a civilization, I don't know if it's possible for them to create a civilization. If you're just looking at it based on the evidence, well, all that we have to do is all that we have is the evidence that we can see and handle today. But if all we have is what we can see and handle today, there's no way of knowing if such a thing is possible. Could they have become smarter than they were before? Yeah. Could they, during their own age, acquire different traits and learn different things. As we said, things can be included inside of genetic coding. Knowledge passed down that way, so which makes the next couple of generations smarter and learn more than what the previous one knows. Absolutely. But in terms of creating a civilization, I don't know. I don't know. That's one for the ages right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
if the
if you're
information
talking-
went beyond instinct, you know what I mean? Because they could communicate. They were able to communicate like a pack of dogs. They know exactly how to flank a running, they're running prey. And they can strategize, and they do communicate. But I don't think it goes beyond like there's the need for to keep like a hierarchy, which they have, the pack leader, and just keeping the pack fed. I don't know.
I've been reading recently a book. I may have mentioned this last week, but it's called Sapiens. Can't quite remember the fellow's name, Yuri something, or Sapiens, A Brief History of Humans, I guess. But it was interesting that he lays out a really interesting case. So the first Homo sapiens appeared in Africa 300,000 years ago. There were other types of human that had already gone out and peopled the world. So Neanderthals by then had already populated Europe and Asia, and Homo erectus had gone out to further east into Asia. And then there's other ones that we're still finding, like in Russia, the Denovetians, or I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but there's been a few other ones that have been discovered recently. But anyways, so Homo sapiens actually had smaller brains than Neanderthals, and were physically weaker than Neanderthals, but otherwise similar enough. But they were not able to escape Africa for 230,000 years. They were certainly not on the top of the food chain in Africa. They lived a very meager, bleak kind of existence, trying to hide from the lions and the hyenas, and were not particularly successful, didn't show a lot of promise. But then something changed about 70,000 years ago. And sometimes scientists kind of are calling it now the cognitive revolution. But somehow when they look at skeletons, the brain is the same size now as it was 300,000 years ago. But did it get rewired, or was it just something that developed? But what he argues in his book is they developed, for the first time, they were able to create in their minds fiction, which allowed them to create myths. And he gave an example. He said, so the Neanderthal could communicate, but all he could really say was, don't go down to the river, there's a lion down there. He just straightforward communication. Whereas Homo sapiens could say, don't go down to the river and make up some mythical beast. There's a Gorgon monster down there. Ooh, and everybody would get scared. And then you could say, well, I got a magic amulet here that will save you, if you buy it from me. I mean, Homo sapiens developed this through fiction, a way of creating culture. And so what he said was that other earlier forms of humans couldn't do this. So their group sizes were limited to about 150, no larger. But as you start creating fictions, now you can create tribes and kingdoms and empires and religions and all those things. You can now create things like take seashells and turn them make that money. So you can have trade. And now humans could form larger groups and communicate better. And so they immediately, once they were able to do that, then they set out, left Africa, and wiped out the rest of the other humans, the earlier humans that were left. I don't know. It's just interesting. I don't, how fast it happened.
Using that scientific theory.
Yeah.
Imagine if humans created that and they encountered, quote unquote, like what I just said, maybe a reptilian race or something like that. You could have had wars.
Yeah, exactly. It's unusual that the way it worked out, Homo sapiens did wipe out all the other humans, and you don't have different humans that are left with us. Although we do have Neanderthal DNA, but yeah.
Because if you look inside of inside. I forget where it is. I think it might be in Iraq. There was one in Iraq, I know, and there was another one. It'll come to me. I'll tell you. But they had images of wars. There were depictions of wars inside of tombs that showed victory. Some were depictions of tribe, like culture against different culture, which shows different victories, and there were also depictions of men fighting creatures. So,
and he would say,
if that was their way of eradicating and putting themselves on top, who's to say? But imagine, we know very little about our ocean. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about our own ocean. And if there were creatures from the seas, do you think any of them might still be living? If there were races that had different advancements, like that looked like quote unquote Egyptian gods, and they were wiped out, are there any survivors? You had even up to the time of Alexander the Great, you had about cynocephali. It's supposed to be a tribe of dog-headed men.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it wasn't only him. It was recorded by Marco Polo and several other explorers as well. Do these things still exist? It's interesting to read about, and when you think about it, the possibilities are endless. That you could have had creatures, but these things have been the remnants of the watchers that came down, and these are what remains. If so, what's their intelligence like? Because before, in all of the other history and prehistory, when you talk about these beings, they were all said to be super intelligent and smart and live for generations. So if any of them are still around, or if their offsprings or generations are still around, do they still maintain that intelligence? You have to wonder, or are they more advanced than the previous? And if they're more advanced than the previous, and the previous were able to do certain things, imagine what they might be able to do now. So, a reptilian race? Maybe, if it existed in the past, hey, it might be a type of alien. I mean, all you have to do is read or listen to David Icke.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you everything concerning reptilians.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't he say the Queen's a reptilian or something?
Yes, that's what
Oh my gosh!
I heard that too.
According to him, half of the ruling classes of the world are reptilians,
Right.
including the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They said that some of them have like abnormal sized craniums.
Yeah.
That's why they wrap them in whatever. But yeah, that could be, I don't know, inbreeding, maybe. Didn't they do that
Could be.
to keep it in the the family, the royal family?
Well, I mean,
if they were reptilians, then where do you think they came from? What kind of planet? It'd have to be somewhat close to Earth. I mean, they would need water and.
In terms of being able to survive on a different climate, they would have to be civilized. But
yeah,
imagine the way that they would have had to develop in order to have that armored skin or that type of eyes. They would have to have different, shall we say, challenges.
right.
Like the eyes of the reptile, for one thing.
Skin, there was a lot of like wind abrasions, maybe high winds. So over time, they developed a scaly skin, and that's why their eyes are closed.
Either that or closer to either that or similar to an aquatic situation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because scales help snakes swim faster. Armored skin, look at what a gator or a crocodile. Yeah, but they would have to come from a climate where it was much harsher. That's my way of thinking.
Yeah, definitely.
Similar, but and it also shows one thing: they might have not been on top of the food chain if they would have that kind of thing. Maybe it's for environmental protection. Who's to say it's not for it developed over time as a way of protection from their natural predators as well?
I think you could maybe also, based on what you just said there too, Samuel, that like when you look now, humans are softer and weaker than pretty much any other predatory animal out there, but yet we dominate the food chain now. So there's kind of a direct, so maybe any creature that would reach this planet using a technology, so in other words, had developed a civilization, maybe they would be likely like us. They would not have developed. They would have left behind or de-evolved from any physical strength or scale or stuff like that.
Well, you look at it. Nocturnal man was physically stronger than us. The bone density was similar to that of a chimpanzee. A chimpanzee could take out Mike Tyson with one punch. You know, and but if Nocturnal's weakness was his brain capacity, be able to think and rationalize and create the way that modern man does in terms of everything that we do, we create what we want and what we need in order to get us to where we want to be. The softness of the skin and that has nothing to do with that. It's just the way the mind works. So all I'm saying is, if they are that way, just imagine the kind of natural predators that they would have had to go.
What I'm saying is once you reach a point where you've developed intelligence and you're now using intelligence and enhanced communication and tool use, now there's a natural tendency for you to become less strong. Just like you said, the chimpanzee is stronger than the human for that reason. As you split off, there's no longer a natural selection pressure for us to have strength and to have hard skin, because that's not the natural selection pressure on us is for us to evolve brains or other types of characteristics that help us work together, or so it's easy to see that maybe even say if humans are still around 10,000 years from now, they would be even softer. It's because there's no longer an evolutionary pressure to make you form strength and defense measures. So wouldn't the same thing possibly apply to any other animal? It may not look like us, but it may be maybe a soft version of a reptile, or
That's entirely possible. If they would have to go through the same type of thing. Yeah, but
well, evolution is life's answer to our environment, basically. So if these creatures evolved on a high wind, whatever, where they maybe acid rain, any kind of terrible environment, they would have developed like armor. But as you said, as they evolved, they probably created homes and ways to shelter themselves, so they didn't need that. So maybe like the armor got softer,
right?
And then made them.
So how do we explain their grace
and enable them to create, have their own the industrial revolution or whatever, where they technology boom, which would lead them to interstellar space travel eventually. So I like that idea.
If such is the case,
turtle people
without the shells.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw them already. They had this guy. A huge rat walking around with a cane with them.
With the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. We gotta throw in little speckles of geekdom in here sometimes.
No, but how many alien races do you think are possible?
It's funny.
You already hear about. I mean, I think it's only because of Ike that there's more word out there about the reptilians. Mm-hmm. The Greys, I think, were probably one of the first that many people heard about.
With the big eyes and the big
big
heads.
And yeah, and then there were several different types. There was, I think I read somewhere about one that was about 5 feet tall, but short and green looking. Then there's another type which is supposed to be like 6 foot tall, but with white hair and no different than a regular human being, except that they had the ability to communicate telepathically.
And they had white hair, you said?
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
that. I read that somewhere. I forget with the name of the book at the moment. But do you think that if the various races are around, how many of them have visited Earth? Obviously, the ones that could have visited Earth are the ones that we've heard about.
True.
And if such is the case, how many more did we not hear about that had the ability, or have the ability, or have been here already?
Well, there are 500 million stars inside the Milky Way, our galaxy.
Hmm.
And I believe there are, I'm not sure, I think maybe 3 trillion galaxies. So there's an awful lot of stars out there. But yeah, I
So the
mean,
possibilities are endless.
yeah. I mean, unless you think that beyond light speed travel is impossible, which a lot of, Einstein would say it is, but I don't know. So
Well,
Nope.
unless we have the wormhole.
Right.
unless someone figures that out, I mean, it almost seems like the universe is designed to keep having these challenges that we say are impossible. They'll never get across that ocean,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Or just such a massive collective, such a an amazing civilization that they can send out scout ships like an ant colony would.
Yeah.
Because just like you just said, alone there's 3 trillion galaxies. And,
Yeah.
They would have to send out, I don't know, millions.
that seems a lot more
Different
likely.
ships.
Yeah, either
think
automated
so.
ships or tiny little
something.
somethings. Even
But all you have
bacteria.
to do, but all you have to do is think about it. How many of them know about each other, and how many of them know about us? And if they know about each other, are they in communication with each other, just like different countries are?
Mhm.
Think about this: interplanetary trade or something like that.
Yeah, well, if there's a space bar like in Star Wars, and they didn't invite us, that's not cool.
I used to work there.
you'll see-
Because Earthlings,
I used to serve drinks at that place.
We can party.
Yeah. Did you meet Han Solo?
Shot first.
No, I swear to God, I did work. I did serve drinks at a place just like that. We're not aliens, but you might have thought some of them were.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, all you gotta do is go down Midtown Manhattan on a Saturday night around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This when I saw your email about talking about different alien life forms, one of the ones that came to mind to me, there was a movie. Oh, what the hell's the guy's name? The good-looking actor with the good-looking actor with the gray hair, the prematurely gray hair. Started out years ago on some TV show. He's done a lot of movies for the Coen brothers. I can't remember.
George Clooney.
George Clooney, yeah. He did a movie called Solaris, which was,
Yes.
I didn't actually see the movie, but I read the book a long time ago because it was
I think it's
Sci-fi.
a remake.
maybe, because the book is old. The book is like from the 60s, I believe.
Yeah, I think there was an older movie called Solaris. This
maybe,
might have been
yeah.
a remake.
But it's an interesting idea because this planet where there's a station at, and he's been sent to monitor strange things going on there. But this planet is really a living being. The whole planet is. And it's able to read our minds, and it's kind of playing with us. And I don't remember all the details, but it's an interesting idea. The idea that, I mean, when you think about it, even just looking at this, our own planet, I believe it's mushrooms and life forms like that, what started slowly digesting the rock. And that's what dug up the nutrients that are now the basis of you and me. And that's, helped create the atmosphere and this and that. So if you gave Earth another, billion years, how much of the inorganic matter would be converted? Like all that soil was created, you know, by these tiny creatures. How much, if you give it enough time, how much of Earth would be turned into organic, you know? And then could that become one thing at some point, you know?
Didn't they do a show on this? What if humans didn't exist? How quickly would nature take over?
Yeah, if the civilization died, right.
We just
yeah.
disappeared.
Right.
Yeah.
How quickly would nature take over? With certain things, think about the areas where people live. Some people live in the suburbs. It's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from where the forests are. If you don't mow your lawn for a couple of weeks, look at the size of the grass. Imagine not doing it for a year.
I'm hoping an octopus moves into my house.
Yeah, you can reach the fridge for you.
But it is an interesting idea that the whole planet could be a one living organism that has a kind of a mind, but we don't really it's so alien from us that we can't really understand it. I know, it's just we talk about different life forms. That's or could a life form be a whole solar system? Could that be one life? Could that evolve into one conscious entity that,
like a sentient life?
Yeah, but
Or
maybe
just
thinks
like
thinks at a
organic
different
animal?
speed than us. Maybe it's thought because it has to travel across the solar system. It's a thought for it takes a year, or it just works at a different speed than we're used to, but it's still one kind of thing.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Sentient planet.
You guys want some of this stuff?
Yeah, I know. Maybe we need
Yeah,
to
pass them over.
I need to get a little bit more lucid. You guys are on a different level right now.
Whatever I'm drinking, it's making me a little crazy.
In that case, bottle it and send it.
So, go ahead.
That's not the first time that stories like that have been around. There are stories from like back in the 50s, 60s, and even before, which talked about stuff like that, even here on Earth, like living islands which have a sentient, their own sentient way of thinking, that are able to defend themselves from invaders and stuff like that. It's not too far ahead to think of if there's an entire planet that has that type of ability. I mean, freaking Guardians of the Galaxy, they had something like that.
That's true. Ego.
Yeah.
So if you could have a planet, could you have a galaxy?
A galaxy of such being?
A galaxy that's all one being. It's so old, or could a galaxy, if given enough time, tens of billions of years, could it evolve into something like that?
It depends what form of life it. I mean, my opinion on this, it would have to start with on a planetary level. So if the planets have some sort of sentient ways of thinking, then it would become more of a communal thing. So you might be able to have a living galaxy, but would it be one thought? Would it be one being with just different moving parts, or would it be several beings with one collective
like
a community setting,
like a bee colony or an ant colony,
right
which is individuals, but it kind of blurs it where it's almost like one thing, right?
It's one. It's you always say one hive, but it's thousands of bees. So it could be one galaxy, but it could be numerous entities with just one singular focus. That's an interesting thought. I've never thought about that before.
Or it could maybe
sponsored by Svedka.
Yeah, right. Well, I have his aloe water.
They should
fun.
They should pay you for that.
Yeah. We need sponsors.
Are you listening, Svedka? We have 32 views.
That's All right, we'll get 32 people drunk. I was going to say, or what if it could start off as something already sentient that can survive space, and maybe over, I don't know, millions of years, it collected space rock and this and that, and it maybe grew into a planet, and then in the center has this living organism. Like,
But that's one planet.
Think of like a giant tardigrade. Those things can survive anything. You put it out there for long enough, so you could get, gather enough.
See, the thing about a planet, the reason I would think I'm skeptical, I mean, as fascinating as I find the Solaris idea, or the idea of a galaxy becoming conscious and becoming a thing, the problem with it, in our understanding of the way that life can advance, can evolve, is that it needs competition. There has to be a process of natural selection. So who is it competing with? So unless there's a whole bunch of other planets that it's competing with resources for, it would never get to that point, at least by any means.
So, which leads to another interesting question. If it's a living planet, what resources would it need? Would it be self-sufficient, or would it be seeking resources from nearby galaxies?
All of a sudden, you see a planet start hopping in unusual ways across the solar system.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, here it comes.
A planet eating planets.
Yeah.
It's like Pac-Man.
Yeah. Wasn't that Ego too?
Ego was trying to plant himself on other planets, kind of to take over. Kind of like what you were saying before about like a hive mind.
No. The wrong name came to mind. Galactus was the one who devoured worlds.
He did. When I first heard about him, I was like, "Does he just grab him like an apple?" Because he was supposed to be like this gigantic thing. No, but he has a spaceship to do it.
Yeah, he was this gigantic space being who could never show his true size.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sheesh, how did we get from aliens to comic books?
I don't know. Really easy, like.
Have you guys ever seen a UFO or anything you found to be unexplained or intriguing in your life?
No, I think
I have.
Saw a satellite pass by. I would imagine that's what that was, because it wasn't a shooting star.
No. Satellites you can tell because they don't blink.
Right.
When they pass by. On two occasions I saw things that were unexplainable. Once was when I was living in Jamaica, not Queens, but the island. The skies are usually very clear from where I used to live. And at nights, you look up, you see the constellations, you know exactly what you're looking at. We used to be looking up there every night. And sometimes you used to see, once I saw these two balls of light just moving in opposite directions, coming towards each other. They stopped, they went like this, and then they continued. That was once, and it wasn't only myself, there was a group of people who saw it. The second time when something unexplainable happened was back when I was living in Guyana. Supposedly there was some sort of crash just off the coast into the water, and we all saw something go down. I saw an asteroid, a small asteroid hit inside of my neighbor's area, so I know what an asteroid is like. So this was something big, and in the morning you could see something metallic. So I know asteroids have many of them have a metallic composition as well. But you could see something metallic, and before 24 hours was up, there were people from the United States government who were actually present in Guyana with boats to go out there. It never made the news or anything like that.
So they found something.
I don't know what they found, but it just leads you to believe that it's possible that it could have been something extraterrestrial as well.
I'll tell you, it does seem like these UFOs don't have very good pilots.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of crashes. Maybe their technology isn't so advanced as we think.
It's like send Bob first, see what happens.
You know something? If you're doing a long distance trip, sometimes you get sleepy at the wheel. I just gotta say, maybe the guy just fell asleep, or maybe you gave him too much spectre.
Plus, if they're driving with their feet, they don't have hands, you know.
Right. And an octopus could have 8 septica at one time.
Yeah, but yeah, those are two things. The other things that I experienced were not anything UFO related, but they were more paranormal.
Well, should we try to coax him into telling us now, or should we save that for a future episode, Brian?
We should save that for a future episode.
All right.
Yeah.
Give us a hint. What's the topic, or what kind of genre would it be in? Is it, you know?
So it could cover something as hauntings and possessions.
Okay. All right. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely another topic.
Yeah. Well, and it opens up a different thing too, where if you're willing to speculate beyond regular science. So if you believe in possessions, for example, then if you go back to reptilians that could have existed, let's say there was an intelligence that involved on this planet during the dinosaur age with relatively advanced reptilians. They didn't build skyscrapers, but they were intelligent beings, and they've been extinct for millions of years now. But if you believe in possessions, then you believe there is some kind of a spirit that goes on. So you could have
now you're talking
the
about
spirit of some ancient race that
now we're crossing
like
all kinds of
Scientology,
boundaries
doesn't
here.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, you don't look like Tom Cruise.
I mean, if possession is possible, then things are spiritual. And who's to say what those things are, right?
Well, there was a story which I read about of somebody who brought home who found a piece of an artifact when he was in Egypt, and he decided to take it home, and he started. Apparently, this thing had. Well, it was part of something larger that was associated with a particular Egyptian deity, the crocodile one. I forget his name right now, but he was haunted. He used to see that in his dreams all the time, and it never stopped until he actually went back to Egypt and dropped it off. But that was when everything stopped, because he said he used to see apparitions and stuff like that inside of his house. Now, whether he was going local or there's something behind it, but what would cause it to stop the instant he dropped it off?
Are you sure this guy just didn't finish watching the Brady's go to Hawaii? Isn't that the whole premise?
Hawaii is another one too. There is, if you go to Mount, I think it was Mount Haleakala, there's a huge barrel of rocks and stones. You know, sometimes you go to a place, you just pick up something to use it as a keepsake. So they say the spirits of the island, and especially their volcanic god Pele, is alive in these things, and if they take it off of the island, they'll be haunted. So many times I asked, what's all these things doing inside of these large containers? They said these are the stones which people actually shipped back because they were being haunted.
Really?
Yeah, this was in Hawaii. You know that you can't eat pork while driving on some roads, because you'll end up with if you're driving on a road or something and you have a pork sandwich, you'll get haunted by some of the native warriors.
Yeah.
Those are things. Those are things when I was there that they were telling me, and I'm like, but I just had a pulled pork sandwich. Will they hunt me because it is my stomach and I gotta go up the road now?
Exactly.
Well, I'm pretty sure they were telling you about the rocks, so you wouldn't take any rocks.
Well, it's funny because while they were talking, you could see other people from the parks department opening up boxes and emptying rocks. And I don't know
Did
if
anyone
there
like that would be really interesting if like people sent letters. They can have a whole library of how people were haunted. Or they're just shipping rocks back without any explanation.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they have for that many rocks that people are dropping back. Obviously, they have to have a collection of letters or something somewhere. Because it's not just a matter of just sending it back. Sometimes if you say, will this be sufficient? I took this one maybe by accident, but I kept getting this. No. Is this all I have to do, or do I have to bury a pig and roast it in my backyard?
Right.
You know, I don't know.
So did you take one?
No.
I would have taken one.
Not even for scientific research?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, no, that's stepping into paranormal research right there.
I guess.
Our X-Vault is going to have to send Samuel back to Hawaii to get a rock.
I agree. I agree.
Brian will send you with him, and you guys can broadcast the show from there.
We'll do it from the beach.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian. Yeah. If we end up in Hawaii, by the way, I know this place which has excellent pulled pork sandwiches, and I know this nice road you can walk down.
I'll do both.
Yeah, right. There we go.
I like to walk after I eat. All right, guys. What should we?
That sounds good. We can wrap it up. Do you guys know what you want to talk about next week? I don't know if this could be interesting to you. I read an article. This was in a. I actually, even though I do this channel, I don't really follow these kind of things. Mostly what I follow is science. I read the science section on a couple of places every time. First thing I get up in the morning, it's just sports and then science. Those are my favorite topics. And this one was, I think it was in American Psychology Today. And this is a very mainstream guy that had never published anything like this before. But he was speculating on whether the brain is a transducer that receives our thoughts instead of producing them. And he began by talking about how his 93-year-old mother, since she's gotten older in the last couple of years, she hears music that she insists comes from the next door neighbor. And the next door neighbor's not playing any music, obviously. And he gets her to describe the music, and she has no musical training or experience or talent, but the music she comes out with to him sounds very good and very original. So it makes him ask the question, where is this music coming from? And I think most of us would say, she's getting older, her brain is breaking down. But he tells another, it's very common for people right before they die, people who are very, very ill and who have been non-communicative or barely communicative for a while, to have a sudden moment of lucidity. It could be moments before they die, or it could be hours or a day before they die. He tells a story of one in particular of a guy who had lung cancer, who the tumors had not just filled up his head, but had eaten away 90% of his brain. There was very little brain left. He wasn't quite a vegetable, but he was not able to communicate or do anything functional for many, many months. And all of a sudden, with his family there, that he all of a sudden completely get back to normal, spent 30 minutes to an hour talking to them, knew everything that was going on, and basically explained his last wishes. And then a few hours later, he died. So this guy's theory is that consciousness, we stream it in from somewhere else. I'm not saying I believe it. I just think it's interesting,
No, that's an interesting concept, and it actually. Do you know about Rupert Sheldrake?
Yes.
Right. When you were talking about that, makes me remember his ideas about market resonance.
I love those ideas.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Those are really fascinating pieces of information. But what you were talking about, I saw it firsthand twice. People before they passed away. And doing that and seeing and hearing things which are not visible. So most people, depending on the culture, what they see and they hear are supposedly things from the past and things which have existed before. So many people say they see the shadows of things that once were, which shows that their end is near. They sometimes even see and hear people who have passed on. So whether they are being comforted by the spirits of those who have passed on to tell them that their time is nigh and there's nothing to be afraid of, we don't know. But for me, I think it's a comforting thought, especially if you think about it. If you're about to go and then all of a sudden you start hearing things, do you think it's more or less, if Sheldrake's morphic resonance theories are correct, could it be that we are experiencing these things, these energies and everything to bring peace of mind to someone who's just about to go? Or is our mind creating that, or are we absorbing from what's once was those energies?
Well, I think we should save it for a future topic. I just want to say, as far as the only thing about Sheldrake is that he outlined a bunch of ways that perhaps evidence could be gathered on that, and attempted some of them themselves, including research with PET ESP and things like that. But it looks like it just never really went anywhere in terms of establishing any evidence. That was the only disappointing part of it. I don't rule it. To me, it still explains. There was another Italian guy who took it into a further theoretical basis for how the whole universe is based on this kind of morphic resonance. But it seems like it should be something we should be able to study and find some evidence for. And if they haven't yet, that's a little troubling. But
yeah, well,
we can tackle it next time.
Okay.
I think what if that is correct, is it possible that the energies and the information that we're sending out, that's why we're attracting other beings from other places? Are they on the same wavelength?
Yep.
Are we somehow unconsciously contacting them?
Well, I think, as me and Brian would say, as far as you're concerned, Samuel, we're not even really here. We are beyond reality.
I love it.
All right, guys. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Brian.
All right.
Maybe someday you can talk Curtis into coming back.
Yeah, we'll see what's going on with him. I haven't heard from him since.
Last week's show will be posted tonight, so you guys can check it out.
Okay, now that I know that YouTube doesn't tell me.
Is it possible that you can send me the link, because I want to forward it to a few people as well?
Will do. Make sure they subscribe. We need those subscriptions.
Yes.
Oh, I'm working on it, but I have to show them a few things that they'll get interested.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
All right. Take it easy, fellas. All right. Good night.